Today's lecture is not really about relationships. It is about something far more dangerous. It is about the invisible psychological machinery that keeps human beings trapped inside emotional pain, even when they know that pain is destroying them. Have you ever seen someone constantly fight with a partner, break up, reunite, cry, apologize, and then repeat the exact same cycle again? Maybe you have watched a friend do it. Maybe you have lived it yourself. And the strange part is this: the relationship is miserable. Both people are exhausted. Everyone around them can see the damage, yet neither person leaves. Why? Most people answer this question incorrectly. They say, the problem is the other person. If my partner changed, everything would be fixed. But psychology and ancient philosophy alike suggest something far more unsettling. The real prison is not the relationship. The real prison is the pattern. There's an ancient Tibetan text, often misunderstood in the West, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Most people think it is a book about death. It is not. At its psychological core, it is a book about illusion. It warns that human beings spend their lives trapped inside mental projections they mistake for reality. And once a person confuses emotional perception with objective truth, suffering multiplies. That is exactly what happens in toxic relationship cycles. The fear feels real. The suspicion feels real. The jealousy feels real. But emotions are not always reality. Very often they are echoes of unresolved memory. A person who experienced betrayal in the past may interpret ordinary silence as rejection. Someone abandoned in childhood may experience distance as danger. Someone emotionally neglected may become addicted to conflict, because conflict at least feels emotionally intense. This is why some people unconsciously choose relationships that recreate familiar pain, not because they enjoy suffering, but because the nervous system prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar peace. That is one of the darkest truths in modern psychology. Human beings do not always seek happiness. They seek psychological familiarity. And once you understand this, an uncomfortable realization appears. Many relationships are not maintained by love. They are maintained by emotional addiction. That addiction has several stages. First comes emotional fusion. The person no longer separates feelings from facts. I feel anxious becomes something must be wrong. I feel ignored becomes they are betraying me. The interpretation becomes stronger than reality itself. Second comes repetition. The same fight happens again and again, only with different details. Accusation, withdrawal, explosion, reconciliation, temporary relief. Then the cycle restarts. Psychologists sometimes compare this process to intermittent reinforcement, the same mechanism used in gambling addiction. Pain followed by a brief emotional reward creates deeper attachment, not less. That is why chaotic relationships can become neurologically addictive. Third comes identity attachment. Eventually, the relationship is no longer just a relationship. It becomes part of the person's identity. Without the chaos, they feel empty. Without the conflict, they feel emotionally numb. At this stage, outsiders often make a critical mistake. They try to use logic. You are overreacting. You should leave. This relationship is unhealthy. But emotional addiction rarely responds to logic, because logic speaks to the conscious mind. Addiction speaks to emotional survival systems buried much deeper. This is why attempts to rescue people often fail. Sometimes intervention even strengthens the toxic bond. The couple begins seeing themselves as us against the world. The more others attack the relationship, the more emotionally fused the pair becomes. So what actually helps? Not persuasion, boundaries, healthy distance, emotional non-participation, and most importantly, self-awareness. The real solution is not changing the other person. It is dismantling the internal structure that keeps recreating the pattern. That requires 4 difficult psychological shifts. First, separate emotion from fact. A feeling is information. It is not proof. Second, verify reality through evidence, not interpretation. Many people suffer not from events themselves, but from the stories they attach to events. Third, identify your repetition pattern. Ask yourself, why do different relationships produce the same emotional ending? At some point, the issue may no longer be the people you meet. It may be the unconscious pattern you carry. And fourth, perhaps the most important insight of all, human beings do not experience reality directly. They experience reality through perception. Two people can live through the same event and emerge with completely different emotional truths. One sees rejection. Another sees independence. One sees abandonment. Another sees freedom. The external event is identical. The internal interpretation is different. That is why the ancient warning from the Tibetan Book of the Dead remains psychologically powerful even today. What you cling to may not be saving you. It may be imprisoning you. And this idea extends far beyond romance. The same psychological structure exists inside political movements, ideological extremism, tribal conflict, and even war. Individuals become trapped inside emotional narratives. Groups become trapped inside ideological narratives. Nations become trapped inside collective identities. People defend beliefs even when those beliefs are destroying them. Why? Because humans often choose emotional certainty over uncomfortable truth. That may be one of the most important psychological realities of our time. So if you remember only one idea from today's lecture, remember this. Your greatest enemy may not be another person. It may be the unconscious psychological pattern through which you interpret reality itself. The moment you recognize the pattern, something extraordinary happens. You regain choice. And once choice returns, the cycle can finally begin to break. If this lecture gave you a new perspective on human psychology, emotional addiction, and relationship patterns, consider subscribing, sharing, and joining us for the next lecture. Because next we move beyond personal relationships and into something even more dangerous. How entire groups, nations, and ideologies become trapped inside collective emotional illusions.